Lamps are assholes. Starting the game, we get to name our party members and favorite food. Usually when naming characters, I base them after myself and people I know. For gathering footage, I often see people use the official names in RPGs, and so wanting to seem like a professional, I did similar with a twist. Ninten is Nintent, Anna is Anna but spelled differently, Lloyd is Lold, and Teddy is Thad in all caps. Then we're given our backstory. In the 1900s, a couple named George and Maria disappeared. 2 years later, George returned, refusing to comment on what happened, throwing himself into study. Now, 80 years later, on the outskirts of the town Podunk, a boy is attacked by a flying appliance. The lamp illuminates how combat works. If you played an old school RPG before, it's quite similar. Attacks give a good ol' smack, Psi are your spells, goods or items, check lets you see an enemy's condition, auto will put things on autopilot, guard uses an action to reduce damage, and flee is to scuttle out of there. And it's turn-based, so it's abstracted, i.e. no one is patiently waiting for the doll or lamp to be crushed over their skull before doing the same with bare hands. This is just the system to convey battles. At this point, I'm just throwing fists and hoping for the best. Which seems like enough, because then this poltergeist business stops and we're given our quest. Strange stuff is happening around America. Let's head out there and put a stop to this funny business. The family wishes us well, Mom will make our favorite food, which in this playthrough is pasta, and Dad is just a call away, depositing spending money, telling our current experience totals to the next level, and saving our game. A key lesson I learned in RPGs is to talk to people, not only because they might have funny things to say, but because oftentimes info is dropped that is quite useful, like Dad saying to check downstairs for your great-grandfather's journal, or Ninten's sister suggesting to check out the doll on the dresser. Where I could feel a bit of the age is with talk and check. If you want to strike up a conversation, open the menu and click talk. If you want to look at something close, pick check. You can't check out a person talking, that would just be weird, and you can't talk to an object, that would just be silly. So you need to make sure to pick the appropriate one or else you're gonna get, who are you talking to? And no problem here. When I played the GBA version, just clicking the left bumper would initiate whichever one was appropriate instead of going through the menu manually. Now, it's really important to check the doll, not for craftsmanship, personally I think it's kinda mid, but because as the journey goes through, the main goal besides kicking cheeks is obtaining the 8 melodies, notes that will come together in the finale, and the doll hiding a music box inside will offer the first. Now with the morning sun at our backs, the goal is to head to the town Podunk. However, the obstacle stopping any townsperson doing anything is that classic natural occurrence, random encounters. With the setting being America, slimes and goblins are taken a vacation and substituted with a Midwest classic like Farmer Wally. Other examples include a couple snakes, stray dogs, crows with shoes, a centipede wearing green sneakers and gloves, and the most dangerous and a nearly fatal encounter with a hippie, where if not for the bread hidden in my pocket, and I'm not talking bread as in fat stacks, I mean pan, bakery-style grain thrown into the oven. And this is where I realized the importance of rise and grind. If you played a couple of RPGs before, or just a really gutsy kind of person, you may be familiar with this experience. Sauntering on into a new zone and then getting humbled by the first encounter, hitting enemies with the force of a plastic wiffle bat and then returning the favor with an elephant gun. Now, one could take this as a personal challenge, throw themselves in front of the obstacle and by the skin of their teeth, or just sheer luck, pull a victory from the thin but endearing stitch of the human spirit. Or you could take the less dramatic but as effective method of shaking hands with your numerical shortcomings, head to the nearest shallow pond, throw yourself into encounters with the energy of a baboon chimp ingesting G Fuel, getting so jacked your character grows muscles in places you thought impossible, walk back into that zone, and plow through enemies like the city-approved vehicle clearing snow from the roads. To make this work, this requires a safe haven to rest up before hitting the ground once again. Luckily, the distance was a few steps from my house, and thus began my daily grind, fighting any opponent poor enough to randomly encounter me, then when I've had my fill, fuel up on mom's spaghetti, then clock in and do it again. You can only fight so many snakes, hippies, crows with shoes, or centipedes before you realize they're chumps. Riding off the high of numerical victories to about level 5, I made that trip to Podunk. Most towns have a similar function. Besides a hub of people to chat with, it's also got a hotel to rest, restaurants to grab a bite, a hospital to lose your money, and the palace of consumerism, the department store. Floor 1 is service to sell your old crap. Floor 2 sells drugs. The third sporting goods and where our baseball enthusiasts can get new weapons. Fourth is food, we're gonna pick up some more bread later, and the reason for this exposition, the fifth and final floor, pets. So, on my first playthrough, I remember finding the third melody before the second and wondering where I went wrong. I retraced my steps, walking back to old zones and having no idea where to find that tune, and only looking into it did I find my answer. With a lot of older games I've played, there have been moments I'd be bamboozled, at loose ends of where to go, or perplexed by the in-game logic to solutions. In one viewing, this could be novel. The game expects you to figure something out without directly holding your hand through it, engage with the world, and come up with the solution. On the other, it feels incomprehensible, the solution making sense only when given the full context. Where you land on this is going to be case by case. As for myself, for most of the game, I found it pretty straightforward, but this moment was probably the most confused I got. Well, I'd like to think I got at least a few points in intelligence, like red is spelled R-E-D, Mother 1 released in Japan in 1989, and 2 plus 2 is 22, you know, the basic stuff. I don't think I would have solved this organically, or if I did, it would have taken at least a decade. When chatting up folks, one person mentions the Canary Village Wildlife Refugee that's free to visit, so naturally, curiosity interests the adventurer, and thus you go to check it out. There you meet a bunch of birds that look massive thanks to their sprites. There's this one bird named Laura just past the village who sings the melody, but will only do so when reunited with her child. Which brings us back to the top floor of the department store, where the shopkeeper will sell you a baby bird for 85 bucks, or if you say no, he'll just give them to you for free. After picking up the chick, you head back to the village and create a reunion, marking off the second melody in your records. But here's the funny part I fell for twice. Seeing as Laura is behind the wall, my assumption is to walk outside the village and loop around following the stone, but was blocked by these 4 dead trees. I tried to shimmy around them by hugging the wall or trying to squeeze between the decomposing branches and water, but no cigar. Going diagonal was a no-go. I was doing mental gymnastics for around 2 minutes to figure out how to move. It took heading back to that white gravestone to realize I just needed to go behind it, and there's Laura. And that leads me to something that feels unique about the game. The world feels massive, which comes from how big the maps are. There are paths to follow, but also wide stretches of land or forest to get lost in, revealing you've been heading the wrong direction this whole time or took a fork in the road a bit too seriously. While in the moment, the TDM with the intensity of random encounters, this can be annoying. You've had multiple back-to-back encounters and then realize you took the long way to a location, then just taking the path out of town. But just as equally, this can also be fun. Like the child main character, you're getting lost in this big world, and that can be an adventure in itself. Like when I found out I took the wrong path to a certain cave I'll discuss later, when I could have saved so much time, I started laughing. There's fun to be had in making mistakes and really taking in the world on your makeshift route. There aren't secret chests or collectibles to find. The scale of the maps add to the expansiveness of the journey. Not point A to B, but starts that often have you bumbling before hitting the next location. But in this clumsiness is where the adventure comes in. Such as our visit to the graveyard, where a child named Pippi has gone missing and the mayor asks us to look into it so he can look good. The guy's a bit of a jag, but we'll get that precious XP, so we get ready to head out. However, before we do that, remember that bread from the department store? Well, here, I'm gonna start tearing it up and leaving it right here, and it's not because I'm bad. Rather, because bread has 2 uses. The first is eating it, which is fine, but the second is way cooler. If you click use, crumbs will be left at that location, and if you use the crumbs, you'll have a free teleport Hansel and Gretel style back to that spot. And here, we don't have to worry about those birds eating them. At this point, we'd probably one-shot them. But that first visit to the cemetery was quite the trip. The music switched from the hopeful and charming track I Believe in You to this. If you know where to go, this is a casual stroll in the graveyard. If not, it's a labyrinth of random encounters as you're traversing through the blockages of tombstones and dead trees. I remember being completely lost my first time through, pushing my luck as I was scrambling to find that crypt. When entering underground, there are 4 coffins you can check. I got really lucky and found Pippi on the first try. Okay, so Pippi, based on the character Pippi Longstocking, is a total ass kicker. Starting at level 1, she will act as a temporary companion until getting back to City Hall. If she gets enough XP by surviving encounters, chugging healing items, or having Nintent use life up alpha, she makes the graveyard become a joke. During this recording, she crit twice before following the breadcrumbs. And here's some fun trivia for ya. Her stats are identical to a late game character, meaning if she stayed around longer, she would have been one of the most powerful in the game. But sadly, she'll have to enjoy her goated status from the comfort of her home. But before saying goodbye, it's key to stop by her house. When you first meet her, she'll ask if you're brave. Now, it's important to say no even if it's a yes, and answer you want to see her again, because doing so will net you the Franklin badge, rumored to have been created by Benjamin Franklin. This item can reflect PK Beam, an attack that acts as a one-hit kill. So after the visit, you're given a new task. Something funky is happening at the zoo, and you're tasked with checking it out. Just grab the key from the mayor's assistant. So as I'm making my way, I get attacked by alligators, and here I realize I gotta bulk up. These alligators chop a good portion of health after approaching slowly, and while I beat them in a few shots, if I'm fighting multiple, it becomes a problem. So I prepare my body with a hamburger from a fast food restaurant and approach the zoo door, opening my pockets to grab the zoo key. Just grab the key from the mayor's assistant. Grab the key from the mayor's assistant. Upon heading to the zoo with the key, a monkey shows up and steals it, running deeper inside. It turns out the lock is actually broken and we can just walk in with no problem. I can picture it now. This lice-eating ape was staring on the other side of the gate, waiting for me to grab the key, so they made my act for naught. But it's whatever. I can be an adult about this. I hope they eat poo. Anyways, with this being a zoo, it sports some animals for combatants. Lions, hyenas, and gorillas. Oh my! Wait, that's a gorilla? That looks like an inbred horse. In the superintendent building lies the culprit for all this funny business. Located in a capsule straight out of Dragon Ball Z is a Starman Jr. rocking the Wonder Woman power pose. The fight itself can be tough without any defensive buffs or armor. But remember the Franklin badge from earlier? This is where it shines. Every so often, Starman Jr. will cast a beam attack, and with the new apparel, it will reflect back at him. It won't do damage, but it puts you on equal footing. Whoever throws the quickest hits wins. After taking the L to orbit, we make our way to the next spot, but here's where the charm got to me. The map has this long, winding path created by trees, forcing the player to take the long way, and while you're trekking back, you may notice the animals. I kept stopping just to take it in. Wow, the pink flowers actually look really nice. Hey, check out those pandas. We got penguins, and we got some poo throwers. This zone is one of my favorites because it's where the setting becomes real for me. It's not a fantastical temple sporting its own culture and way of life, it's a zoo. The main character can look at animals here just like I did when I was a kid. I thought that was wicked. The trek back got me to think, dude, you only have one life. Take it slow and enjoy the interludes from the action. Savor it. Check out this singing monkey. And now for something completely different. Heading west from the zoo lies a cave, and if you bring your great-grandfather's journal, you're taken to Magicant, the game's most fantastical zone. Everybody looks like a wizard, the soil is colored like a strawberry milkshake, the water is seafoam green, and you step on sprites that look like poffins from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. On one hand, it's cozy. An inn serves pasta, and if you bend a guy's spoon with Sai, you can crash at his place however long you want. It sports some of the best defensive items in the game, but there's also something off, too, like a childhood memory where if you peer too close, you can notice the cracks in the most intended memory. Not just the enemies, though I did get humbled by some magic snails. How did they catch me? I couldn't tell you how, they just did. But I mean with Queen Mary. In the palace, you can talk to a servant who says, Queen Mary often has nightmares. As if scolding a naughty child, she cries out, I'm scared, and then she starts to sing, just a little bit. Then she forgets the tune and wakes in a sweat. I wonder what sad experience has done this to Queen Mary. If you talk to her, she'll ask for 8 notes to remember the song, and I bet you see the point of our quest. There's context with what to do, but not the why. So as I was playing through this, I had a moment that got me. It was a minor thing like the zoo, but hit differently. In the throne room, there's another servant you can talk to, telling you about this item called an onyx hook to teleport back to Magicant so you don't have to keep going through the cave. And the conversation ends with, promise me that if you need help, you will return. Everyone loves you, Nintendo. I don't know exactly why that got to me. The music could have contributed to that, or just the directness that a bunch of strangers care about you without it being qualified. I couldn't say. And I would return as the journey continues. I'd come back to Magicant constantly, for better gear for party members, to grind levels, and deep below the underground, when strong enough, fight the dragons sleeping below. But we're a long ways off from that. I lost to a fish. On land too, like what the hell? After giving a right hook to the flippery foe, he drops the onyx claw. Then, after talking to a guy I'm forgetting, we wind up outside of Marysville. Before heading into town, I decide to visit Sweet's little factory, a bit of foreshadowing for what is to come in a few minutes. My main reason for visiting is for a souvenir, located in a trash can. I don't get how it works, but this receptacle has an unlimited amount of bottle rockets, an item that can be used in combat, which unfortunately sounds more cool than actually lighting it up. I need to smuggle it in my pockets and head to Twinkle Elementary. It's in school that I came to appreciate the dialogue. The game has often had goofy lines that got me to chuckle from random strangers. The school had moments that had me grinning throughout. A few examples include a person saying that every first grader knows how to cartwheel while getting a different answer admitted from another student. A girl's father keeps saying, I'm no ordinary man, as a catchphrase, but when confronted, he is, and a student saying, "I'm hungry. Let's do lunch." Like you just closed a big deal and it's time to grab a bite. The game's director, Shigesato Itoi, also worked as a copywriter, and the dialogue for the game showcases his unique personality shines through the characters. You never know what people are going to say, and that becomes a reward in itself. A mechanical one got me to laugh and punished my RPG conventions for chatting everyone up. In the library, a girl will sneeze on you, giving the cold debuff, acting similar to poison in other games. So as you head to the nurse's office, she informs you she can treat wounds in fights, but you still have a cold. The nurse can patch up wounds from UFOs and robots, but a cough paired with a runny nose is too much for the medical professional, and thus you need to walk around the school with boogers hanging out. In This Weekend State was my favorite exchange in the game. To get to the roof required a key from the janitor, so you chat up the fella. The following is how the conversation went. "Of course the door to the roof is locked. We can't have students sneaking out to play games when they should be studying, you know? Yeah, I get it. It's not that big of a problem. My wife is a bigger problem. She doesn't get out of bed until afternoon each day. She won't even pack me a brown bag lunch. Isn't that just horrible? Yeah. Then when she does get up, she goes shopping. Luckily, I hid the credit card from that woman. Don't you think she's a terrible wife? Well, I wouldn't go that far. When she was young, she was real pretty. Come to think of it, she's not that bad at all. Would you like some tea? Yes, please. You're a pretty good kid. You say you need to go up to the roof? Follow me." It's stuff like that where the conversation goes in a completely different direction that makes talking so fun. I love how the game replicates the feeling of, "My wife was the first Miss Marysville in history." Oh, you're still going. On the top of the roof, smushed in a garbage can, is our second party member, Lold. While not the toughest guy in the block, in fact, he'd sooner trip on Quirky pavement than give someone a good thrashing, but dang it, the kid's got some spirit. Especially seeing that bottle rocket. Eyes alit and suggesting to check out the science lab. After a contained explosion, the next stop of our journey is Duncan's factory. Have you ever played something and gone, "Wow, this sucks"? Not the whole thing, just that chunk where you just want to take a scalpel and precisely remove that section from the overall whole. Well, Duncan, you son of a gun, your factory is getting cut. If Sweets was a casual dip into factory layouts, Duncan is the Mariana Trench. This place is a vertical maze. It all looks the same, ladders, walls, doors to gift-wrapped chests. The core difficulty is the scale. If we dabble in knowledge not accessible in the game, here's the map of Sweets. This is the factory. Combine this with the intensity of random encounters and you've got an old school descent into madness. The main goal is to get Lold to fire the rockets to blow up the rocks blocking the tracks. This requires them not to be unconscious when you arrive. A bizarre thing to mention, right? Well, that's going to be a bit tricky with your new companion being level 1. Anything that randomly encounters will be offering free concussions. And the guy can try protecting himself, but it's not going to help. When a truck drives in front of you, putting up your hands will lessen the impact, sure, but it will be in the same way that taking a few steps from direct impact with a meteor will save you. So a pit stop to Magicant for another session of Grind City is in order. And thanks to the power of video editing software, we can make the grind become a blink. Bam! Lold now has 2 abs. As annoying as the factory can be, don't forget to snag the second Franklin badge in one of the chests. It's the only other one in the game, and it would be rude to leave your buddy out of the drip. So blow up the rocks, and at the train station, I was impressed with how open the game was. There were multiple stops and was cool with me going to any of them. My route was as follows. I stopped over at Reindeer because it sounded fun and chatted up this old lady who asked if I was going to Snowman. She found a hat and gave it to me. Now it's not gonna fit my fat head, but it's the property of Anna, the next party member. With the clack of the track and a catchy tune, we head to Snowman, and a few steps I've been given a gift. A cold. There's a townsperson who even warns you your apparel is lacking, and dude, I've got one Sprite and it's not keeping me very warm. As I pick up the phone to call Dad and save, he breaks the fourth wall to talk to you, the player, saying, "Hey, thanks for looking after my boy. What's your name?" So I enter it and it carries along. We give Anna her hat and she becomes our next party member. While Lold is happy to be here and can use gadgets, Anna is well versed in Psy, getting some offensive spells pretty early on and an upgraded heal compared to the player character, whose abilities seem more supporting, like buffing or debuffing. While traversing the woods, there was a random encounter that spooked me, and we're not even at the Haunted Manor yet. I came across a polar bear. Anytime that creature showed up has been bad news, so my immediate instinct with 2 party members down was to brute force, knock this thing out before it claws. So right at the start, Nintet crits with a hearty 77 damage, and the polar bear looks at him and grins. That was a stupidly good hit, and it felt the need to do nothing in response. So I pulled off a victory, throwing a boomerang enough times, but man, that freaked me out. Speaking of freaking out, welcome to Spookane. The town has been overrun by monsters, and the people are living in the outskirts. Random encounters happen in the streets, and the hotel offers a Starman fight. Only after you get fully healed, of course. He's a professional. We haven't talked about the melodies in a hot minute now, have we? It's weird, there's a good block of time where there is no progress on that front, and suddenly we're gonna gather song notes back to back. Walking around the outskirts, we can talk to the Rosemarys, the family owning the fancy manor up ahead, and get a key to check it out. So you think, being the heroic group of youths, we're gonna clear out the manor and restore peace to the land, right? Not quite. Exploring the manor, the real prize is a piano that plays the fourth melody, and once we get that, we're out. Adios, see you around. I was taken aback at this. We saved the zoo, the cemetery, but the manor and Spookane? Nah, they're fine. We got ourselves a little song, let's saunter out of here. Actually, not quite. A bat turned intent into stone, his sprite remained neutral, and this goofy looking guy knocked out Lold with a final strike. The game says we lost, but I'd argue it was a draw. So let's turn our attention to the Yucca Desert, home of the fifth melody, shared by a cactus thanks to the power of telepathy. It's in the sweltering hot sun where the novelty becomes stronger. There's this guy offering airplane tours with 3 different circuits. If you gather 10 tickets, you get to ride in his tank. It's a tank, so of course you fork over the cash. And in these sequences, you just sit back and watch the sprite fly across the sky, revealing parts of the maps that walking the desert would make agonizing. Information-wise, this is good, but part of the experience, you get to witness from high above how large the world is. And with the tickets being given per party member, you may do this a couple of times, maybe the same smaller one to save cash or view them all. So after the sightseeing tour, the children get to drive a tank. During the tour, there were these ruins, so I decided I want to check it out. So the kids drive through the desert, ignoring random encounters, as they approach a boss fight with R7037. Immediate reaction, oh dear, we're dead. But as the foe crit and the tank bounced the attack back with massive damage, I knew the fight was in the bag. The shells standing in for basic attacks were good, way better than a boomerang or frying pan, and eventually the foe turned to scrap much like our tank. In the ruins were a collection of monkeys, advice ranging from helpful to faulty, but I want to highlight my favorite that got me chuckling. Oh, and a baby. Hubba Hubba. What a dish. I've had my fill of the sand, so let's visit Youngtown, a location where all the adults have disappeared. Rumors have it that Garrickson's baby has psychic powers, and using telepathy teaches us the ability to teleport, traveling to cities we've already been to. However, the game has a real quirky way of doing it that had me groaning as time went on. Click the place you want to go, and your character goes into a mad dash building up speed. If you run into anything, buildings, trees, people, your character slams into them, canceling the ability. You gotta pick a wide space to gather momentum, and moving in other directions is so abrupt, you'll be crashing into pixels you didn't even register. I would only do so if I absolutely needed to. Doing these kinds of videos where everything is presented chronologically and you, the viewer, can kick back and relax going from point A to B can be fun, but also problems occur in the production. The most infuriating part of the playthrough was the trek to the last town, LA. To get there, we need to cut through the winding path of the swamp, then cross the bridge like a sprinter crossing the finish line. The large bodies of water made this confusing with bridges leading to nowhere, and combined with the chain of random encounters made this feel like an odyssey. Partway through, we run into Pippi again, offering a free rest, and Lold's father hiding in a trash can, outright calling his son a weakling, which made me feel bad for my party member. The guy is constantly getting clowned on, and even by his dad. There was a cat that would give him candy because he was such a weakling. He deserves better is what I'm trying to say, because he and I went through a gauntlet together. Anna got KO'd after making a good bit of progress, and the stay at Pippi's didn't revive, so the two of us ran like the wind. Nintendo would use 4D Slip, a move that highly increased your chance of running from a fight, but eventually the PP ran out. And finally, right as we're about to cross the final bridge into LA, literally, if you did one of those baseball dives, we would have been there, we got KO'd by some bison, sending us all back to Youngtown. Bread would have been useful if the damn seagulls didn't steal it from my inventory. Would you like to see that moment? Well, here you are. Now, I assume you have questions. This right here is a premier reason you double check what screen is capturing footage before recording. I'm just glad this didn't record my microphone because I was casting 9th level profanities during this realization. My 30 minutes of game time were for naught. So I ran through it again and we made it into the final town of the game. The BB gang set up turf here and would initiate combat if talking to one. The real action happens at the club, beginning with running into the tank guy again and paying that fine for scrapping his vehicle. Yeah, sorry about that, man. Additionally, you can take a lady up on a drink and a cop barges in just like if you pirate anything off the internet and takes you to jail. After spending a night, you can promise to be a good boy and never do it again. However, you won't get your weapons back. Yet, coincidentally, an officer has somehow gotten his hand on that same weapon and will sell it for a fee. Oh dear, That would have been really bad if I didn't swap my weapon just before this moment. That would have been devastating. Now, back at the club, after the stern talking to and buying another ticket, haha, good one guys, a person will ask if you want to perform, where your party breaks out a tune I had no idea we practiced and kill it on the dance floor. There are other variations of the performance depending on which party members you have. And then, enter at long last, Teddy, also known as Thad in all caps. He asks, "Did you beat up my guys?" And this 12-year-old boy looks at this towering adult in sunglasses and says, "Yes," which begins a duel between the two. You can't actually lose this fight, so enjoy a few rounds of combat before Thad decides he wants to check out what's happening at Mounty Toy and joins the party, straight up kicking Lold out of the group and swapping him in. Now, granted, dick move, Lold is my boy, Glasses Gang represent. However, this is countered with this point. Thad kicks ass. Remember how good Pippi was in the early game? Well, stat-wise, she and Thad are identical, and Thad is the same level as Lold. Combat-wise, he is a total beast, taking an all-expenses-paid trip to Crit City constantly. When you actually have an adult in the party, fights start to become a lot easier. The guy is such a powerhouse, I took him to Magicant to fight the dragon sleeping in the cave, and it took one try for him to flatten that lizard, under-leveled, brute forcing the 6 melody in no time flat. And there was something so cool about him, rocking a pompadour, tank top, and sunglasses. It looks goofy at first, and then it loops into itself, and I just find it to be legitimately awesome. Thad was the man. Mounty Toy wasn't anywhere as bad with him on my team, and lying in the caves were some of the strongest weapons in the game. A bat for Nintent, a new frying pan for Anna, and because Thad didn't have time for those fancy gizmos and baubles, he just gets a katana. But you never really know what you got till it lies in bed and you have to carry on without him. Partway through our ascent up the mountain, there's a house that offers a phone to save and heal up, but also has a story moment. First, a quiet scene where Anna and Nintent can admit feelings for each other and share a dance before a robot shows up for a boss fight. Now granted, I've been hyping up Thad like the John Cena of party members. This guy doesn't miss, but the guns he's rocking are not quite up to par with the adamantine robot towering over a building. In this dire moment, it's time for Lold to go Lamau in Phase 2 on the robot with a rebuilt tank, rescuing the party and getting them safely at the base of the mountain. Now it's time to say goodbye to Thad. Donned in sunglasses, recovering in bed, he realizes brute force will not be enough for this quest, to where Lold is ready to see the adventure through, back in the squad. If I could dab him up, I would. Just as what is taken away can be given freely, upon Lold fixing a boat and getting sucked into a whirlpool, those things happen within minutes of each other, by the way. Mother One is something else. We come across an underwater base and meet the robot Eve, built by Nintent's great-grandfather George to protect the boy at all costs. Eve rocks, often one-shotting foes and acts as an additional member independent from the party, meaning you don't have to input moves, she is doing the slam dunk every single turn. Now is a perfect opportunity to grind if you wanted to power level your characters. But personally, when I get near the end of a game, I run out of patience and often just go for a mad dash to the finish, yet I have a tip for you. So as you climb up the mountain, the robot will make a return. Eve's damage isn't great and the robot will turn her into scrap, which causes her to self-destruct and take them with her. In her ruined remains, her last act plays the 7th melody. Losing such a powerful character is rough, especially on the back of Thad, and as a fan of the Iron Giant movie, it sucks to lose a friendly robot that cares about you. Now, if you play this, learn from my mistake. I thought it would be a great idea to rest at the house before heading up the mountain. However, if you try to leave, the robot instead meets you there, leading to Eve's destruction offering the melody, but now nowhere near close to peak, meaning that awesome overpowered companion is gone earlier than expected. But reaching the top is where the game reaches its peak. Up to this point, I found the game to be a quirky RPG that got an occasional chuckle and a stop to smell the roses approach. I expected the final fight to be quite standard, drop the comedy and let's do this. But Mother One goes into a more emotionally resonant direction that had me shedding tears by the time the epilogue rolled, even on this replay. That sure surprised me, and I'll attempt to articulate how that came to be. The first was a grave, the one of Nintent's great-grandfather George, whose place of rest stores the final melody. Revealed to be pieces of Maria's love scattered across the country, and upon singing the completed melody to Queen Mary, she remembers how she and George were abducted by aliens and raised one named Gygus as one of their own, how George stole information from this otherworldly threat and Gygus planning to conquer the Earth 80 years later, and upon giving this information, she and Magicant disappear. At this point, I went, wow, that was actually a really bittersweet reason. Glad for a reunion, but a sudden goodbye for sure. So the stage is set. It's time to fight Gygas, the one causing all the problems, starting with the lamp. After all those captured are revealed to be in the capsules, the only way to get them out is this final fight. And it's one that starts unsettling. This Mewtwo-looking guy can't take any damage but can surely dish it. And the music of this looping drone sounds like a bit of an old tech that just needs to be turned off. He talks about destroying the planet and willing to let Nintent live as his bloodline looked after him. But only him. The rest of the planet is doomed. With a bias for humanity, you're not even given an option. The fight goes on. And after rounds of holding out, likely using defensive Psy abilities and Anna's group heal if she has enough levels, then the prompt shows up. Sing. This got me to think back to Thad saying strength wasn't enough. There needed to be something else, and the answer is love. Singing the 8 melodies is what saves the day. The lullaby Gygas heard from his mother Maria. The droning is cut off with the melody before cutting right back. Gygas demands you stop, and you need to do this 11 times, mixing in heals and rebuffing the party when appropriate. The fight isn't a duel, it's a reminder of what Gygas is trying to stop. The life that was given to him by the one who took him as their own. George was more focused on the threat, so I don't know how much credit he should get in this bit, but Maria loved him. And the melody is that affection expressed 80 years later. That love is shown again by her descendant and his friends. And say what you will about Luld, but his lack of strength is made up for the fact he is willing and can combat this threat in the way that someone like Thad wouldn't have first assumed. Emotionally distraught, he flies away. The world for the time being is saved. And as the epilogue played, I saw these characters saying goodbye. I remember this trailer I saw for the game. It was this live-action production where the characters head to Mount Itoi, and in Japanese the voiceover guy says, "No crying till the ending." And it got me to think of what made this game special. It was the sincerity. The story isn't complex, but that's not a knock against it. In fact, the simplicity of it makes the emotional resonance hit harder. A story where the most powerful thing isn't psychic powers or robots, but love. Genuine, unabashed, sincere love. The game has got plenty of jokes and funny bits, but it's not in an ironic way where the joke is on the work itself. It's playful and silly within the context of the game and with RPG conventions as a whole, but it also respects its own world. It slows down and lets you smell the roses, take in the sights, have one kid confess their love to another and they get to respond yes if they feel the same, like childhood sweethearts. Earthbound Beginnings, or Mother 1, is a game that captures the joy of life, where kids go out on adventure to save the world and come home in time for dinner. That earnestness is my favorite part about it. Sometimes it seems like people are too scared to say what they truly mean from the bottom of their hearts, worried how they'll look or sound, or what label will follow them to the time of their deaths. It sounds ridiculous, but that fear certainly held me back personally. Irony seems cool because there's nothing really lost if it doesn't land. It's a shield from actually being real and honestly saying what you mean. But what irony also does is cheapen the heart. From personal experience, being sincere can open you up to being rejected, and that can really sting. But when it lines up where someone else feels the same in whatever form, it's one of the best feelings in the world. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And playing this game reminded me of that. That finale hits so hard because it doubles down, saying what it means as you sing that melody again and again. And it was this artistic expression of that authenticity in this game that had tears welling in my eyes as I smiled. What an awesome game. While gameplay-wise, I'm not that into it. With everything else, this game rocks and I'm lucky to have played it. And thank you for watching. If you give the game a shot, maybe you'll find something to connect with just as I did. Rate the video whatever you wish, and more videos to come in the future. Take care of yourself.